In a stunning show of international scientific collaboration, a group of neuroscientists from 22 labs across 11 countries have joined forces to produce a landmark achievement. They've mapped neural activity across the entire brain in a mouse as it makes a decision. Published today in the journal Nature, the map depicts activity into 179 areas of the brain, encompassing more than 600,000 neurons in 139 mice. It has the first such map to show what happens across the whole brain as a decision is made. They have created the largest dataset anyone has ever imagined at this scale, said Dr. Paul W. Glimcher, chair of the Department of Neuroscience and Physiology and director of the Neuroscience Institute at New York University as Grossman School of Medicine of the researchers. In the field of neuroscience, this is going to go down in history as a major event, Glimcher, who was not involved in the new research, told CNN. Now here on the Science Channel, we love talking about big science, large-scale infrastructure and engineering projects that push the boundaries of what's possible. And the new brain map is no exception. So keep watching to learn about the incredible scale and scope of this project and how it is poised to change the future of neuroscience. But first, if you love space exploration and text stories about robots roaming the surface of Mars, then you'll want to check out the latest episode of SciShow Space, our sister channel, linked below. Now back to the brain map. Constructing this map required a huge international team of researchers, led by the International Brain Laboratory, or IBL, a non-profit organization that aims to accelerate neuroscience by fostering large-scale collaborations. According to the IBL, there are four main challenges associated with making a large-scale map of brain activity. The team had to agree on a standard procedure. They needed a large number of animals, and they had to ensure those animals were all healthy. And they had to develop new tools to analyze massive amounts of data. So over 7 years, the team worked to address each of these issues. First, by creating a standardized procedure to be shared across laboratories. Then the researchers recruited a total of 139 mice, and after testing them individually for health and behavior, divided the animals into cohorts of 9 for experiments tracking neural activity during decision making. To get this data, each mouse wore a miniature electrode helmet with a neuropixels probe, a tiny device developed at the California Institute of Technology that can record the electrical activity of thousands of neurons at once. The researchers simultaneously tracked activity from multiple brain regions, including areas known to be involved in decision-making. But the sample size of the study meant that the researchers could also identify smaller networks of neurons that contribute to the process. Once the data was gathered by each lab, the team used algorithms to integrate all of it. The result: 2 studies describing the most comprehensive and precise map ever of brain activity during decision-making. One study outlined the widespread distribution of electrical activity related to decision-making. The other used the data to evaluate how expectations shape choices. We started from scratch, said Alexander Pauget, a full professor in basic neuroscience at the University of Geneva. Nobody had ever attempted to do something like this before. The 2 studies were based on a similar experiment. Mice wore electrode helmets while turning a tiny steering wheel to control the movement of a black and white striped circle on a screen. The circle briefly appeared on either the left side or the right side of a screen, and mice that successfully steered the wheel to the center received a reward of sugar water. As the mice responded to what they saw, neuropixels probes recorded electrical signals in their brains. But the experiment was designed with an extra challenge. Sometimes the circle was faint or nearly invisible. To decide which way to turn the wheel for a reward, a mouse would have to recall what it saw during earlier attempts. That's called prior knowledge, Pauget said. Every decision you make is made that way. Neuroscientists previously hypothesized that the brain accesses prior knowledge early in decision-making so that as soon as you start processing your sensory stimulus, you do it in the context of what you expect. Pauget said the brain map demonstrated that this prediction was correct. Using machine learning and artificial intelligence, the researchers grouped the activity of individual neurons into clusters based on how similar their activity patterns were. Then they analyzed the activity in each cluster and found that the timing of the activity varied. depending on whether the animal had just seen a clear image of the circle or a blurry one. When faced with a clear image, neural activity related to recalling prior knowledge began relatively late in the decision-making process. But when confronted with a blurry image, the activity began sooner, reflecting the fact that the animal needed to access its memories earlier to make a choice. This type of analysis of the data wouldn't have been possible even a few years ago. You couldn't have done this sort of thing unless you had really large numbers of simultaneously recorded neurons, Paget said. Another important finding from the study was the sheer number of brain regions that were active during the task. We thought maybe it would be mostly in the cortex, but it turns out that almost every brain area is involved in some way or another, Paget said. From a single neuron to thousands at once. For decades, scientists have studied brain activity during certain tasks by using electrodes that record electrical pulses from single neurons. But recording one neuron at a time is difficult and slow. Several months of work would yield results from around 100 neurons, making the technique best suited for studying highly targeted regions of the brain. Over the past decade, neuroscience took a giant leap forward with the development of digital neural probes, neuropixels, which can monitor thousands of neurons at once. These sensitive electrodes were an essential tool for creating the new map. We went from looking at just a few hundred neurons in one area to 600,000 neurons in all brain regions, Paget said. In the experiments, the activity first spiked toward the back of the brain. In areas that process visual input, activity then spread across the brain, with motor controlling areas lighting up as a mouse's decision culminated in movement. Widespread brain activity followed when the mouse got its sugary reward. It's not just a few areas involved in this, but a very large network of areas that work together. Paget said, knowing how much of the brain is involved in decisions will help researchers conduct more targeted studies of complex behavior. The study authors reported, while the map reflects activity in the brain of a mouse, the researchers believe that much of the neural activity related to decision-making is conserved across mammals, including humans. So what does this mean for the future of neuroscience? It's really hard to overstate the impact of this paper, said Dr. Adam H. Glazer, assistant professor in the Department of Neurology at Boston University School of Medicine. This is the largest study I am aware of that describes the activity of a large number of neurons across the whole brain. The implications are really profound. Glazer, who was not involved in the study, explained that in the past, neuroscientists might look at a particular brain region and try to determine how a behavior rises from the activity of a few hundred neurons. But with the new map, researchers can take a bottom-up approach, looking at the activity of individual neurons and building an understanding of how they relate to behaviors. The beauty of the paper, Glimcher said, is that it demonstrates that with enough resources, scientists can tackle large-scale problems that were never thought possible before. There are many things we can do now that we could not do before. Ideally, added Paget, a co-founder of the IBL. This map will be the first of many large-scale collaborations between neuroscientists. We're really hoping that this is going to inspire other groups to start working with this kind of approach, just as large-scale international collaborations in other disciplines have transformed how science is conducted. The scope of the work that produced the brain activity map is a game changer for neuroscience. Traditionally, the biological sciences have been a lab-by-lab science, unlike the multi-lab collaborations that often occur in physics and astronomy. A notable example is the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, which involves hundreds of astrophysicists and astronomers and has produced the most detailed 3D maps of the universe ever made, encompassing over one-third of the night sky. The Sloan Digital Sky Survey revolutionized the way we gather astronomical data and distribute it amongst astrophysicists, Glimcher said. The vision of the research organization behind the brain map, the International Brain Laboratory, is to build a Sloan Digital Sky Survey for the brain. So what do you think? Will this map lead to new discoveries in neuroscience? What other ambitious science projects would you like to see us cover? Share your thoughts below. And thanks for watching. If you'd like to learn more about how digital probes are changing neuroscience, check out this video.